A black man sits in the plush quiet of a bank's VIP lounge, the kind of space designed to whisper wealth and exclusivity with every polished surface and murmured greeting. Around him, attendants glide smoothly, eyes flicking over tailored suits and designer watches, deciding in a glance who matters and who doesn't. No one suspects that the quietest man in the room, the one they're about to dismiss with careful disdain, holds the power to send a $2.9 billion shockwave through their entire empire. They think they know exactly who belongs here. They're wrong. Watch how the illusion of superiority shatters when the truth comes calling. If you're ready for this unraveling of arrogance and want to see how it ends, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Jordan Pierce stepped out of the sleek black town car and paused for a second on the sidewalk outside Stonebridge Bank's imposing downtown headquarters. He took a deep breath, adjusted the cuffs of his tailored charcoal suit, and smoothed his tie with deliberate care. The Chicago air was brisk and sharp, biting against his cheeks, but he welcomed it. He needed the cold clarity. Today wasn't just any day. It was the culmination of weeks of negotiation. A final meeting in the bank's prestigious VIP Wealth Management Lounge to secure the future of his multi-billion-dollar corporate empire. He wasn't here for charity. He was here as a major client who paid for service, respect, and results. He walked steadily across the polished stone forecourt, ignoring the idle glances of passers-by and other clients arriving in luxury cars. The glass doors slid open as he approached, and he stepped into the hushed, opulent lobby. The scent of polished wood, fresh coffee, and understated wealth greeted him like a familiar adversary. He scanned the space once, eyes narrowing with practiced precision, and set his course for the brass-accented doors labeled VIP Wealth Management at the far end of the lobby. His shoes clicked against the marble floor in slow, unhurried authority. This was his territory now, or so he thought. As he pushed open the heavy door, the change was immediate. The sound softened to a hush. Plush carpets muffled footsteps. Rich leather chairs glowed under warm, recessed lighting, and abstract art covered the walls in curated precision. Low jazz music floated over quiet conversations. A few other clients in tailored suits and expensive jewelry sat relaxed, sipping mineral water and reviewing investment portfolios on tablets. Behind a sleek white granite desk sat Clara Miller. Her blonde hair was coiled into a tight, immaculate bun. Her tailored navy dress fit perfectly. Her posture broadcasted control and polish. As Jordan approached, she glanced up from her computer, and her eyes flickered over him with the speed of a scanner. She smiled, but it was a sterile, corporate smile, devoid of warmth or genuine welcome. "Good afternoon, sir," she said in a clipped tone that was all manners, no hospitality. "May I help you?" Jordan offered his own polite, practiced smile and extended his matte black business card, his name embossed in understated silver. "Jordan Pierce. I have a 3:15 appointment with Lee Whitman." Clara's fingers hesitated before taking the card. She flipped it over once slowly, as if testing its weight for authenticity. Then she set it down with precision next to her keyboard. Her fingers began to type in short, sharp bursts. Jordan watched the screen carefully. He could see the appointments list. His name sat right there, clear as day. But Clara's eyes moved across the text without recognition. She scrolled past it deliberately, pretending not to see it, typing notes that meant nothing. Seconds stretched into an uncomfortable silence. Jordan stood tall, his portfolio case tucked under his arm, his other hand resting loosely on his side. He refused to look flustered. Clara's fingers paused on the keyboard. She looked up at him, her smile now even tighter. "I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce," she said with studied coldness, loud enough for others to hear. "I don't see your name on today's schedule." Jordan felt the first tight twist in his chest, but he forced his face to remain calm. He cleared his throat gently and held up his phone screen so she could see the bold text. "Confirmed 3:15 p.m. Lee Whitman." "It's right here," he said evenly. "Confirmed. Would you mind checking again?" Clara didn't move an inch. She didn't even glance at the phone. "That won't be necessary," she said in a voice that oozed polite dismissal, while her fingers drummed against the desk in clear impatience. Jordan felt a hot flush crawl up his neck. He inhaled slowly. "Are you seriously telling me you can't see it on the screen right in front of you?" His voice was still low, but his words had an edge of steel. Clara's face didn't twitch. "Sir, if you don't have a confirmed appointment, you'll need to check in at the main lobby." The entire VIP lounge seemed to freeze. A white-haired older man in a pinstripe suit lowered his Financial Times just enough to peer over the top. A woman in a sleek designer dress blinked rapidly and looked away. Jordan felt the burn of their silent judgment. He could see Ethan Carr, now the head of security. Ethan was tall and thick-shouldered in a dark navy uniform, his badge gleaming above his heart. He had been leaning casually against the frosted glass entrance, but now he straightened up, watching the exchange like a hawk spotting prey. His hand rested lightly on the radio clipped to his belt. Jordan swallowed hard, his tongue suddenly dry. He reminded himself that he'd fought for years to be in rooms like this. He wouldn't give them the meltdown they clearly wanted. He smiled, but it was humorless. "Look, let's not do this. You and I both know my appointment is here. I have the confirmation." He angled the phone closer, refusing to lower it. Clara's fingers resumed their tapping, this time harder, impatient. "Sir," she said slowly, "I've already told you. There is no appointment here. You'll need to leave this area if you can't verify it properly." Jordan's voice dropped to a warning tone. "I'm verifying it right now." But she didn't blink. Instead, she tilted her head a fraction toward Ethan. That was the signal. Ethan moved forward, his heavy shoes thumping against the plush carpet with deliberate authority. "Sir," he said in that practiced, oily calm of a man who enjoyed being the enforcer. "Is there a problem here?" Jordan turned to him, eyes narrowing but voice steady. No problem at all. Just trying to get them to admit I'm on the schedule." Ethan didn't even look at the phone. He glanced at Clara, who shook her head slowly, her lips pressing together in triumph. "He claims to have an appointment," she said. "Mr. Pierce, could you come back over here for a moment?" Her tone held all the manufactured politeness of customer service, laced with a hard edge of suspicion. Jordan inhaled slowly and rose. He smoothed the crease of his slacks with one hand, controlling every movement so it didn't look like he was shaking, even though anger and humiliation churned in his stomach like acid. He walked back toward the reception desk, his shoes sinking slightly into the expensive rug, the muffled sound at odds with the hard stomp of his heart. Clara didn't bother to hide the exasperation on her face. She didn't offer the fake smile this time. Instead, she gestured sharply at his ID. "I'm going to need to see that again, please. For verification." He blinked. Again, he kept his voice low and calm, but the incredulity was impossible to hide. She gave him a thin, humorless smile. "Yes, for verification, please." He handed it over without a word. The small black leather case was warm from his pocket. She took it with the tips of her fingers, holding it away from her pristine dress as though it might stain her. Then she flipped it open and studied his card again, lips pressed together so tightly they were bloodless. Jordan saw her eyes move over the embossed lettering he'd paid a designer to perfect, the silver type on matte black that screamed wealth and authority. But she didn't seem to see any of it. "Mr. Pierce," she began, her voice artificially patient, "you understand we have certain standards in place to protect our actual VIP clients." He felt something in his chest go cold. Actual VIP clients. His jaw tightened. He forced himself to breathe. "I am one of your actual VIP clients," he said evenly. She raised an eyebrow, ignoring the faint tremor in her own voice, or maybe relishing it. "That's why we're verifying." Again, she handed the ID back with 2 fingers, letting it drop so he had to catch it. He heard the low murmur of conversation behind him, felt the heat in his ears. He didn't turn around. He didn't need to see the expressions. He could hear the edge of amusement and curiosity, the shared judgment in the half-swallowed snickers. He replaced the card in his pocket with slow precision. Clara's fingers returned to her keyboard, clicking in pointed staccato. She typed something, frowned theatrically, tapped the enter key a few extra times for show. Then she looked up, her expression almost triumphant. "Still nothing, Mr. Pierce. Are you sure you have an appointment today?" Jordan's eyes flashed. He swallowed hard before answering, fighting for the last remnants of calm. "Yes, I have the confirmation email right here." "You know I do. You saw it before." Clara exhaled loudly, an impatient huff that turned heads. She folded her hands. "We're not trying to be difficult, but without confirmation in the system, we can't allow anyone to just wander into the VIP area." Her voice was louder now, carrying into the far corners of the lounge. He heard someone clear their throat in awkward sympathy, another person shuffle uncomfortably in their seat. Jordan's throat went dry. "I didn't wander in. I walked in for my scheduled meeting. You're making this difficult." Her eyebrow arched high. "We're just doing our jobs." Her tone dripped condescension, turning that phrase into a personal insult. Ethan chose that moment to move closer. The security head was just behind Jordan's left shoulder now, looming in deliberate proximity. His radio crackled softly, a reminder of his authority. "Everything all right here, Ms. Miller?" he asked, not even bothering to address Jordan. Clara didn't take her eyes off the monitor. "He says he has an appointment, but I can't find it." Ethan made a sound like a hum of disapproval. He leaned slightly closer to Jordan, his breath brushing Jordan's ear. "Sir, maybe you'd like to take a seat again while we sort this out?" The words were polite, but the tone was anything but. Jordan turned his head a fraction to look at him. "I'll stand," he said tightly. Ethan smiled, slow and knowing. "Suit yourself." Then, as Jordan shifted slightly to avoid the guard's looming stance, Ethan took an exaggerated step forward and accidentally bumped his shoulder hard. The impact sent Jordan staggering half a step back. He felt the heat rush into his face, his hands clenching involuntarily. Ethan didn't apologize. Instead, he adjusted his jacket with an air of boredom. "Careful there. Tight quarters." Jordan's mouth went dry. He wanted to scream. He wanted to punch the smug look off Ethan's face, wipe the polite sneer from Clara's. But he didn't. He knew that would be exactly what they wanted. Instead, he forced a smile that felt like glass in his mouth. "Don't worry about it," he said. His voice cracked once, betraying him, and he saw Ethan's eyes glint with satisfaction. Clara didn't even look up. Ethan leaned in, voice low but perfectly audible to Jordan thanks to the cavernous hush of the lounge. "I want you to keep an eye on our guest over there. Make sure he doesn't try anything." The words landed with surgical cruelty, each syllable carefully measured for effect. The younger guard blinked once, hesitated. His eyes darted to Jordan, then back to Ethan, uncertainty flickering in the set of his mouth. Ethan didn't give him time to question it. "Did I stutter?" The younger guard swallowed visibly and shook his head. "No, sir." He straightened up, adjusting his earpiece, and turned to stand watch a few feet behind Jordan's chair, posture stiff, gaze flickering between Jordan's back and the rest of the room like he expected him to pull out a gun at any moment. Jordan exhaled slowly, controlling the quiver in his breath. He refused to look at the junior guard. He kept his eyes forward, willing himself not to react, not to spit the words he wanted to say. He could hear Ethan chuckle quietly behind him, the sound like gravel dragged over glass. The other clients in the room pretended to ignore it, eyes fixed on phones and newspapers, but the air was thick with awareness. This was no longer subtle. This was a performance, staged for maximum humiliation. Ethan wanted everyone to see that Jordan Pierce, successful businessman or not, was dangerous, suspect, other. Minutes dragged by in heavy silence, punctuated only by the gentle hum of the air conditioning and the occasional polite laugh from Clara as she greeted a new guest. Each time the door swung open to admit another wealthy client, the atmosphere seemed to tense for a moment before settling back into its curated comfort. Jordan sat rigid, one leg crossed neatly over the other, his portfolio case perched perfectly on his knee. He checked his watch again. 3:30. 15 minutes late for the meeting they all knew he had. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. He fished it out quickly, hoping for salvation. But it wasn't Lee Whitman. It was an automated banking notification. He swiped it away with more force than necessary, the glass screen creaking faintly under his thumb. From the corner of his eye, He saw Clara finally rise from her desk. She smoothed her skirt with careful precision before stepping out from behind the granite counter. She walked toward him with the unhurried, deliberate pace of someone fully in control of the space. When she stopped in front of his chair, she didn't bother to look down at him. Instead, she let her gaze sweep the room for an audience before finally fixing her eyes on his. "Mr. Pierce," she said in that same unyielding tone, "I'm afraid you're going to have to understand our policies." He arched an eyebrow, the only betrayal of the fury burning in his veins. "Your policies?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, we have strict rules about who can wait here." Her lips curved into something resembling a smile, but devoid of all kindness. "This lounge is reserved for verified VIP clients only." Jordan's phone buzzed once in his pocket. He snatched it up, desperate for a reprieve, a sign that his contact inside the bank remembered him. But it was just another automated alert, some trivial corporate update. He ground his teeth so hard he thought they might crack, and he forced himself to take a slow breath before setting the phone carefully back on the table. Then the doors at the far end of the lounge opened. Lee Whitman himself appeared, tall and gray-haired in his bespoke suit, chatting amiably with another well-heeled client who laughed at something he said. Jordan sat up straighter, relief flashing in his chest like lightning. Finally, he raised a hand, trying to catch Lee's eye. But Clara was faster. She glided from behind her desk and intercepted Lee halfway, her movement graceful, her expression serene. She angled herself between Lee and the path to Jordan's chair, her body language firm but pleasant. Jordan watched her lips move, watched Lee frown in polite confusion as she explained something to him. Lee's eyes darted past her shoulder, meeting Jordan's for the briefest instant before Clara gently but firmly redirected his attention, gesturing back toward the door. Lee hesitated, frowned again, but Clara's voice was a soothing purr, her hand a gentle guide on his sleeve, and she ushered him away, back toward the private meeting rooms. Jordan felt like the breath had been knocked out of him. He stood so abruptly that his chair scraped loudly across the rug, turning heads. He ignored the stairs and crossed the floor with measured, forceful steps, portfolio tucked tight under his arm. Clara saw him coming and didn't even flinch. She turned to face him squarely, her smile gone, her expression all business. "Mr. Pierce," she said coolly, lifting a hand like a traffic cop, "I'm sorry, but you can't go back there." He blinked, shocked at the sheer gall. "That's my meeting," he said, voice rough. "I'm late because of you. Move." Clara's chin lifted a fraction, eyes hard. "You're not on the schedule." Jordan laughed once, harsh and humorless. "You know damn well I am. I have the email." She didn't glance at the phone he held out. "I'm sorry, but I can't allow you to disturb our real clients." The word struck him like a punch to the gut. Real clients. For a moment he couldn't breathe. His fingers tightened so hard around his phone he heard it creak. He felt his vision narrow, a red haze creeping in at the edges. But he forced it back, swallowing bile, blinking hard to clear his sight. "That's it," he said slowly, voice shaking with rage. "We're done playing." He took a step forward. But Ethan was there in an instant, moving to stand directly in front of Jordan, one massive hand held out like a wall. "Sir," he drawled, all fake politeness gone, "you need to calm down." Jordan's eyes snapped to Ethan's face. "Get out of my way." Ethan's lips curved into a thin, humorless smile. "You need to leave. Now." Jordan's breath caught. He forced himself to lean back half an inch, to avoid giving Ethan the excuse he so obviously wanted. "I have an appointment. I'm not leaving." Ethan's voice went flat, deadly serious. "I wasn't asking. You can go on your own, or we can help you." Jordan's mouth went dry. He felt every eye in the room on him. He could practically hear the unspoken words in the hush. Watch him snap, watch the angry black man prove he doesn't belong here. He swallowed again, the movement painful. "Don't do this," he said hoarsely. "I'm a client." Ethan's eyebrow quirked. "Not today, you're not." Clara stood behind Ethan, arms folded now, her polite banker's mask fully gone, replaced with a look of cold disdain. She didn't bother to speak. She didn't have to. His pulse thumped so hard in his ears, he barely registered the quiet buzz of conversation around him. A mother hushed a child who pointed at him, asking why the man looked so angry. An older man in a tailored suit spared him a single glance before turning away with calculated disinterest. Jordan closed his eyes, inhaled sharply, and forced his shoulders to relax, his grip on the portfolio case easing before the leather cracked under his fingers. He could hear Ethan's voice behind the door, muffled but unmistakable, barking orders to the junior guard about keeping the area clear and reporting anything unusual. For one seething, dangerous moment, Jordan considered leaving, just turning around, walking out those double glass doors, and never setting foot in this bank again. But that wasn't how this ended. He didn't get to walk away from this indignity and pretend it didn't happen. Because walking away meant they won. It meant they got to tell the story their way, the troublemaker who didn't belong. He felt his jaw lock with determination. He opened his eyes and spotted the internal phone at the edge of the lobby, a direct line to the private offices. His feet moved before he could second-guess himself. He snatched up the receiver and dialed the extension for Lee Whitman's office. The number burned into his memory from a dozen successful deals and negotiations. It rang twice before the assistant answered, her voice clipped and professional. "Lee Whitman's office, how may I help you?" "This is Jordan Pierce," he said tightly, voice low but forceful. "I'm downstairs. Clara is refusing to let me in. I have a confirmed appointment with Lee. Tell him to come out here, now." He heard the rustle of papers, the hesitation, the pause that spoke volumes even before she spoke. "I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce," she said after that too long silence. "Mr. Whitman is occupied at the moment. Can I take a message?" His teeth ground together audibly. "Tell him if he doesn't come out here now, he's going to lose $3 billion in business. Tell him I'm not leaving without speaking to him." Another pause. The line went quiet for a full 10 seconds, broken only by the faint static. Then, "I'll see what I can do." And the line clicked dead. He slammed the receiver back into the cradle hard enough that heads turned. He didn't care. He turned on his heel and stalked back toward the VIP entrance. The doors loomed, the frosted glass reflecting his dark, furious silhouette. He reached out, gripped the handle, and shoved it open, stepping inside with force he barely controlled. The music, the polite conversation, the soft lighting, all of it seemed to recoil from him. The entire room stilled. Clara looked up from her desk, eyebrows lifting in manufactured surprise, her mouth opening in a perfect O of disapproval. "Mr. Pierce," she said, voice cutting, "I'm sorry, but you are not welcome back here without an appointment. I've already explained this." Jordan ignored her, his eyes locked on the corridor leading to the meeting rooms. He knew exactly where Lee would be. He started forward, jaw tight, shoes biting into the plush rug with each step. Ethan moved before Jordan had gone 3 feet, intercepting him with practiced efficiency. The security had planted his massive frame squarely in Jordan's path, one hand pressing hard against his chest, stopping him cold. Jordan's breath hitched. The contact wasn't painful, but it was unmistakably controlling, claiming ownership of the space. Ethan's eyes were dark slits of amusement. "I don't think you heard the lady," Ethan said slowly, his voice pitched to carry across the entire lounge. "You're not allowed back there." Jordan's hands curled into fists at his sides, his voice coming out in a strangled growl. "I have business with Lee Whitman. I'm not leaving until I talk to him." Ethan's hand stayed planted on his chest, firm and immovable. "Sir," Ethan drawled with mock patience, "I'm asking you nicely. Turn around." Jordan's eyes flashed. "Or what?" Ethan smiled, showing teeth, and leaned in closer until their foreheads were nearly touching. "Or you leave here in handcuffs." He saw them in the periphery, a woman clutching her purse a little tighter, a man frowning in disapproval, a young couple exchanging wide-eyed whispers. They all saw him now, not as a client, but as a problem, a disruption. The man who had been ejected from the VIP lounge like trash set out on the curb. He reached the middle of the lobby and stopped, trying to steady himself. His heart thundered in his chest, making it hard to breathe. He drew in a long, slow breath through his nose, held it until his lungs ached, then let it out in a trembling exhale. He squeezed his eyes shut for just a moment. He was here for a reason. He had come to secure the future of his company, his employees, his own name. He wasn't going to let them take that from him. He opened his eyes again, the chill in his gaze returning like armor. He turned, pivoting on his heel, and walked back toward the VIP doors with grim purpose. The glass panel reflected his determined face, eyes burning with fury and resolve. He grabbed the handle and yanked it open, stepping back inside the hush of a lounge. Conversation died instantly. Heads turned. Clara's fingers froze over her keyboard. Ethan, still standing at parade rest near the reception desk, straightened slowly, the radio at his belt crackling with some distant chatter. The junior guard, lingering near the coffee bar, went rigid. Jordan didn't slow. He strode forward, planting himself squarely in front of Clara's desk. His voice, when it came out, was low and dangerous. "Get Lee Whitman out here. Now." Clara blinked once, slowly, her face the picture of professional disdain. She folded her hands neatly on the desk, her posture immaculate. "Mr. Pierce," she began, tone soft but unyielding, "you've already been asked to leave." Jordan's fingers drummed once on the edge of the granite countertop, the sharp sound cutting through the silence like a gunshot. "You think this is over?" he demanded. His voice trembled with barely contained rage. "You think I'm just going to walk out and forget this?" Clara's smile was thin and poisonous. "That's exactly what I think. Because you're leaving now." He leaned forward, lowering his voice even further, the words hissing out. "I'm not going anywhere until you call him out here. I have business with this bank. I have an appointment. You don't get to decide otherwise." Clara didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, examining him as though he were something unpleasant on the bottom of her shoe. Then she let out a quiet, exasperated sigh, the sound calculated to belittle. "Mr. Pierce, let me explain this as simply as I can so there's no confusion." She paused just long enough to ensure everyone was listening. "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, and I'm exercising that right. Take your business elsewhere." The words dropped like a stone in the silent room. For a heartbeat, Jordan felt dizzy, as if the floor had tilted under him. The rage that surged in response was so hot it burned the back of his throat. He actually had to grip the countertop to steady himself, nails digging into the cold, hard surface. He heard the gasp from one of the other clients, the muttered "God" from someone else. But he didn't care. He straightened slowly, feeling every muscle in his back and shoulders tighten like coiled springs. He wanted to scream. He wanted to reach across the desk and flip it onto its side. He wanted to grab Clara by her perfect collar and shake her until her teeth rattled. But he didn't. He couldn't. Instead, he forced himself to speak through gritted teeth, each word trembling with controlled fury. "You don't know who you're talking to." Clara's eyes glittered coldly. "I know exactly who I'm talking to, and I know you're not welcome here." Jordan's breath rattled in his chest. He couldn't stop the shaking in his hands now. His vision narrowed, tunneling down to Clara's smug, unflinching face. He felt the eyes of every person in the lounge boring into his back, waiting, eager for the spectacle. That was when Ethan moved. The security had pushed off from where he'd been lounging against the wall and crossed the space in 2 deliberate, predatory steps. He positioned himself just behind Jordan's right shoulder. Jordan could smell the faint astringent scent of the man's aftershave, could feel the radiating heat of his bulk. "Sir," Ethan said in that calm, cruel voice, "I'm going to have to ask you one last time. Leave." Jordan didn't turn. He didn't respond. His fingers dug even deeper into the edge of the desk until his nails threatened to split. Ethan's hand landed on his shoulder, firm, heavy, claiming. Jordan froze. His entire body went rigid, blood pounding so hard in his ears it roared like an ocean. He felt the humiliation burn so brightly he thought he might spontaneously combust. When he reached the center of the lobby, he stopped so abruptly his momentum almost carried him forward another step. He planted his feet. His chest rose and fell with deep, furious breaths. His hand tightened around his phone, so hard he half expected the screen to shatter. For a moment, the enormity of the humiliation crashed over him in a sickening wave. He'd been ejected, physically handled, publicly stripped of dignity in a place where he'd come to do business. With money they were only too happy to take until they decided he didn't belong. His face burned with rage, but under that there was something colder, older, meaner. The part of him that had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing. The part that had sat across from boards and told them exactly what he would do to them if they didn't get in line. He forced his breathing to even out. He closed his eyes, and he remembered every face. Clara's cold, dismissive smile. Ethan's smirk as he squeezed Jordan's shoulder in that final insult. The other clients pretending not to watch, but hanging on every second. He opened his eyes, the calm settling over him like steel plating. He raised his phone and hit the speed dial without hesitation. It rang once, twice. Then a familiar voice answered. "Mr. Pierce." Jordan didn't waste time. "Lydia, it's Jordan." He heard the immediate alertness in her voice. She was his executive assistant, but far more than that, the keeper of his schedule, his gatekeeper, his fixer. "Yes, sir. What's wrong?" His voice was low but unmistakable, each word enunciated with lethal precision. "Get the Treasury team on the line. Move the entire $2.9 billion in corporate holdings out of Stonebridge. All of it. Today." There was a moment of stunned silence on the line. "Sir." Lydia's voice cracked slightly. "All of it." "Now," Jordan repeated, cold enough to freeze the words in midair. "Wire it to First Pacific. They'll be ready. I want confirmation before I leave this building." He could practically hear Lydia scrambling, flipping pages, signaling to the other assistants in the background. "Yes, sir. Right away." Jordan ended the call before she could say another word. He didn't need comfort. He didn't want reassurances. He wanted results. He lowered the phone slowly, deliberately, and turned back to face the VIP entrance. The glass door remained closed, but he could see their shapes inside. Clara at her desk, already bending over her keyboard with an expression of smug finality. Ethan standing just inside, arms folded like a sentinel, probably ready to leap if Jordan so much as breath wrong. And worse, they had dared to laugh at his power, spit in the face of everything he'd built, the empire he had fought to keep clean and thriving in a world that wanted him to fail. But even as his stomach twisted with nausea, another part of him, the part that had survived boardrooms full of sharks and rivals eager to see him bleed, was already cataloging every insult, every smirk, every condescending remark. He didn't feel defeated. He felt like a man about to set the match to gasoline. He stopped near the main reception desk, the marble so polished he could see the set line of his clenched jaw on it. He pulled out his phone again, fingers moving with precise fury as he opened his corporate banking app, swiping past passwords and biometric IDs with practiced ease. On the screen, the numbers flashed up like ammunition. $2.9 billion in corporate funds, divided across multiple high-yield accounts and strategic investments. Beneath that, his personal holdings, a modest fortune by comparison, but still enough to draw blood if needed. And below that, the special VIP invitation sent by Stonebridge's own executive concierge, complete with a gold seal logo and his name in embossed digital script, Jordan A. Pierce. He let out a hard breath, chest rising and falling with controlled anger, before turning back toward the VIP doors. The lobby staff watched him openly now, frozen in the moment, whispering behind hands but not daring to speak. He could see their faces registering the shift, the realization that this wasn't just some belligerent customer causing a scene. This was a man with power, real power, the kind that didn't raise its voice until it was sure everyone was listening. He walked back toward the door. The glass gave way under his hand, and he pushed it open with a force that rattled the hinges. The hush inside was total, immediate. Conversations died mid-word. Every head turned. Ethan straightened with visible alarm, his hand going reflexively to the radio at his belt. Clara's fingers stilled over her keyboard. The junior guard shifted nervously near the coffee bar, eyes wide and uncertain. Jordan didn't pause. He didn't slow. He walked right up to Ethan and stopped inches away from the big man's chest. He tilted the phone so the screen was clearly visible, the bank's logo at the top unmistakable, the balance figures large enough to read from several feet away. He didn't speak at first. He just let it hang there, let Ethan's eyes flicker down, widen, and then dart back up in dawning horror. Then Jordan spoke, his voice low, precise, and vibrating with ice-cold clarity. "That's me," he said, tapping the screen once, hard enough to make Ethan flinch. "That's my money. That's my invitation. That's the appointment your bank confirmed a week ago." Ethan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His jaw worked once, twice, but no sound emerged. He looked over Jordan's shoulder at Clara, whose face had gone pale under her careful makeup. She blinked once, twice, fingers trembling where they rested on the keyboard. Jordan turned then, slowly, deliberately, so the entire lounge could see. He held the phone aloft, letting it cast its cold glow across the hushed, luxurious space. Clients watched, frozen, expressions ranging from shock to guilt to fascination. He spoke again, voice rising just enough to fill the room without yelling. "This is what you threw out," he said, each word falling like a hammer on glass. "This is the client you decided didn't belong. This is the business you just lost." Clara's voice cracked when she tried to respond. "That doesn't prove anything." Jordan cut her off with a gesture so sharp it was like a blade. "Read it," he ordered. He held the phone out toward her. "Read it out loud. Every number, every line. Tell this room exactly whose money you just spat on." Clara didn't reach for the phone. She didn't even blink. Her mouth opened and closed twice, the words caught in her throat. Her face had lost all its carefully curated calm. It was the face of someone realizing the ground beneath them had vanished. Ethan swallowed audibly. He took half a step back, his eyes darting between Jordan and Clara like a man realizing he was on the wrong side of a battle he never understood. The junior guard took another step away, shifting so far to the side he practically blended into the wallpaper. Jordan broke the silence first, but not with yelling. His voice was steady, grim, ringing with that controlled, lethal calm of someone who knew the full weight of what he was about to unleash. "Call your accounts department," he told Victor. "Confirm it." Victor opened his mouth, perhaps to placate, perhaps to protest, but no words came. He swallowed visibly, atoms apple-bobbing in his expensive starch collar, and he reached with trembling fingers for the receiver on Clara's desk. The line rang once before someone picked up, the tinny speakerphone projecting the voice into the room. Victor's voice cracked when he spoke. "This is Lang. I need you to check the Pierce Holdings accounts. Right now." A muffled voice on the other end hesitated, clearly confused, then went silent except for furious clicking of keys. Then the voice returned, strained and disbelieving. "Sir, there's an active transfer order, $2.9 billion. It's in progress. Already authorized." The words hit the room like a bomb. Ethan flinched as though he'd been struck. Clara's breath hitched audibly, the hiss of terror unmistakable. Victor's face turned ashen, the blood draining so fast he actually reached out to steady himself on the edge of the desk. Jordan didn't move. He just watched them all, his gaze flat cold and utterly without mercy. He let the silence stretch again, watched as realization spread like ink in water through the room. This wasn't a threat anymore. It was happening. The money was gone. Their prize client, maybe their biggest, was leaving. Victor finally found his voice, but it was broken. "Mr. Pierce, Jordan, we can reverse it. Let's just talk." Jordan cut him off with a single raised hand. The gesture was calm, almost gentle, but it was final. "No," he said, his voice hard as marble. "I'm done talking. You had your chance." Clara tried to speak then, her voice quavering. Her eyes shiny with the beginnings of tears, she tried to blink away. "Mr. Pierce, please, this isn't personal." He turned those frozen eyes on her, and she actually flinched. "You laid hands on me. You mocked me. You called security to threaten me with weapons. You told me to go to the lobby service window. You made it personal." Clara's mouth snapped shut. her face crumpling slightly before she turned away, trying to hide it behind her monitor. But the tremble in her shoulders gave her away. Victor licked his lips, eyes wild now, voice pitching higher with panic. "We can fix this. Name your terms. This is a misunderstanding." Jordan's laugh was humorless, low and cold. "A misunderstanding? Your people threw me out while they laughed in my face. Your head of security threatened me with a taser. Your banker told me I wasn't a real client." He let the words drip with venom before finishing quietly. "You don't come back from that." The phone on Clara's desk buzzed again. Victor jumped like it had bitten him. He snatched it up, barked a hoarse, "What?" before going silent. Everyone could hear the voice on the other end. The head of PR, tight with urgency, trying to keep her tone neutral. "Sir, we have a problem. Media outlets are calling. Someone leaked the audio. They're asking for a statement about a VIP client being forcibly removed. They're saying there's a racial component." Victor's jaw fell open, his face twisting into something between rage and horror. He closed his eyes for one brittle second before forcing them open again, looking at Jordan as if seeing him for the first time. Jordan didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just watched as the color drained even further from Victor's face, the older man realizing that this wasn't just a lost client or a lost fortune. This was a scandal. This was the kind of stain that spread, that made investors flinch, that knocked points off stock prices, that got board members asking if someone needed to take responsibility. Ethan finally snapped. He lunged forward, voice breaking. "Sir, Mr. Pierce, this is crazy. You don't have to do this. We can talk it out." He actually reached for Jordan's arm, like he could physically hold him back from leaving. Jordan jerked his arm away with disgust, so sharp it made Ethan flinch back. "Don't you dare touch me again," he said with such quiet venom that Ethan's mouth snapped shut, shoulders hunching in on themselves. The junior guard didn't even try to intervene. He looked like he wanted to quit on the spot. Victor pinched the bridge of his nose, eyes squeezing shut as the reality crashed over him. Then he turned on Clara, voice low and deadly. "You're suspended. Effective immediately." Clara jerked like she'd been slapped. "What? No, you can't." Victor's voice rose in pitch and volume, cracking with the strain. "Get out. Now. Before I have you escorted out." Clara let out a strangled sob, scrambling to collect her things, her eyes wild and wet, smearing the careful mascara she'd applied this morning for a day that was supposed to be routine. Victor turned next to Ethan, whose mouth hung open, face flushing deep red. "You too," Victor ground out. "You're done here." Ethan's jaw worked like he was about to protest, but the words died. He looked at Jordan one last time, but there was no help there, no mercy. He lowered his eyes and turned away. Jordan left the bank that day with his shoulders squared and his expression carved from stone, ignoring the frantic calls of Victor Lang echoing after him in the marble lobby, the man's voice cracking with desperation as he realized too late how far things had gone. Jordan didn't look back once. He pushed through the brass-trimmed doors into the Chicago wind and let the cold slap him awake, searing his lungs with every breath, a brutal reminder that out here there was no polite lie to cover up what had happened. There was only the truth of it, the raw, ugly truth that power didn't insulate you if they decided you didn't belong. That no amount of money or success would ever erase the color of his skin in the eyes of people who thought wealth was their birthright alone. But even as the chill stung his face, there was no shame left in him, only purpose. 3 days later, he sat behind his vast mahogany desk in the top floor of the Pierce Holdings Tower, the windows framing a sweep of steel and glass skyline that was as much a monument to his own will as it was to the city itself. Papers littered the desk, contracts awaiting signatures, digital screens blinking with new emails, financial reports, and proposals. But Jordan ignored them all. He sat back, fingers steepled, watching the skyline with eyes that were cold but thoughtful. His phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up, reading the message with an eyebrow twitching in surprise. Lydia had forwarded it from the front desk downstairs. Clara Miller was in the lobby, asking to speak with him. In person. She hadn't called. She hadn't emailed. She'd come here. Jordan considered ignoring it. He considered telling security to escort her out the way her bank had done to him. But that was too easy. too small. He set the phone down carefully and stood, straightening the cuffs of his custom-tailored jacket with deliberate precision. He told Lydia to let her up. He waited behind his desk when the elevator chimed and the door slid open, revealing Clara standing in the doorway. She wasn't wearing the sleek navy banker's dress anymore. She wore a simple black coat, her hair slightly disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed and tired. She stepped in hesitantly, looking around the office with the tentative, wary movements of someone entering enemy territory. Jordan didn't say a word, letting the silence stretch. Finally, she cleared her throat and tried to speak, but her voice cracked. She closed her eyes, sucked in a shaky breath, and forced the words out. "I'm sorry," she said, the two words tumbling out so fast they seemed to trip over each other. She blinked hard, her eyes glistening. "Mr. Pierce, I'm so sorry. For everything I said. For how I treated you. She faltered, pressing her lips together as a sob fought its way up. She swallowed it back. "I was wrong. I was so wrong." Jordan didn't move, didn't blink. He watched her the way you'd watch a street performer you didn't trust, waiting to see if there was a trick. She kept going, voice thick. "I thought I was better than that. I thought I didn't see color. But I did. I treated you like you didn't belong. I humiliated you. I enjoyed humiliating you." Her face crumpled then, tears streaking down cheeks flushed with embarrassment and something more honest. She pressed a hand to her mouth. "I lost my job. I deserve to. I ruined my reputation. My family can't even look at me right now. My parents, they're disgusted. And they should be." Jordan exhaled slowly. The fury that had filled him like oil waiting for a spark on that day at the bank still simmered in his chest, but he forced it back. He didn't speak. He let her sob quietly in his office, the sound raw and ugly. She dropped to her knees in front of his desk without grace or dignity, clasping her hands in front of her like she was praying. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry, that I'll spend the rest of my life making sure I never do that to anyone else." He waited until the sobs calmed into ragged breathing. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, quiet, steady. "Get up." She did, slowly, wiping at her ruined makeup with shaking fingers. He studied her, noting the haggard lines in her face, the misery that couldn't be faked. "I don't need your apology," he said finally, voice flat but not cruel. She flinched, nodding once, accepting it without protest. But then he continued, softer this time. "But other people will. Don't waste this. Don't let it just be a scar you hide. Make it mean something." She sobbed again, covering her mouth, nodding violently. He gestured to the door. "Go. Figure it out. Prove it." She hesitated, eyes full of relief and shame all at once, then turned and left without another word. He let out a long breath, one he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He sat back down, leaning into the plush leather of his chair, eyes unfocused on the skyline, as the weight of the moment settled into his bones. He didn't feel triumph. He didn't feel revenge. Just tired. A week later, he was at the Southside Community Resource Center, a place he'd funded for years, a hub of after-school programs, job training, and support for families clawing their way up from poverty the same way he once had. He wore no suit, just slacks and an open collar shirt, blending in among the staff and volunteers. He was walking through the recreation hall when he noticed a familiar figure near the back, kneeling to tie a little boy's shoe. Ethan. No uniform, no security badge, just khakis and a volunteer t-shirt. The big man looked smaller without the costume of authority, older, lined with exhaustion. Their eyes met. Ethan froze. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Ethan stood slowly, eyes cast downward, wiping his hands on his pants like they were suddenly too dirty. "Mr. Pierce," he mumbled. I'm trying. I wanted to," he trailed off, shaking his head, unable to finish. Jordan didn't offer a handshake, didn't offer absolution. He just nodded once, enough to show he'd heard, then turned and kept walking. Days later, Jordan sat in a glass-walled conference room at Stonebridge's main branch, this time at the explicit request of the new interim CEO. Papers spread before them, He leaned forward, pen in hand, reading policy drafts for new mandatory anti-bias training, new security protocols, new customer service standards. He edited mercilessly, redlining entire sections that were performative garbage. He insisted on real accountability, on real education. The new CEO watched him with respect, taking notes, nodding solemnly at every cut and comment. When they paused for coffee, the CEO cleared his throat awkwardly and said, "Mr. Pierce, you could move all that money back, you know. We'd be honored to have you." Jordan didn't even look up. "We'll see," he said, his voice neutral. "Prove it safe for everyone first." He tapped the paper once, circled another line, and kept working. The end. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more high-stakes, emotionally charged narratives with real consequences and powerful themes, let me know by hitting that like button and subscribing so you don't miss the next one. What did you think of this plot? Was there a moment that hit you hardest or a character arc that surprised you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from today? Share below so we can see just how far these stories are reaching.